Welcome back to episode 23 of the Optional Boss podcast. We are your hosts, Josh and Tyler, and today's going to be a little bit different, I guess you could say. We're just going to ramble, honestly.
I don't think that sounds different at all. If anything, I think that sounds exactly like what we've been doing this entire time.
I mean, to an extent, yes. Yeah.
We're going to title this one, We Did Not Have a Title. Well, actually, no, that's a terrible title, but...
That's a terrible title.
We don't have a
Oops,
topic.
just rambles.
Oops, all rambles. Yeah. It's this is what you're all here to listen to. This is basically going to be structured as... So, we realized, amidst this wonderful project that we've doing, that we haven't actually really had the time to just kind of just kick back and talk about games, even though that's all we do here.
Yeah, it's usually like a topic at hand, if you will, where we just want to kind of sit back and try something a bit different and kind of just have a general discussion. Gaming stuff coming up and what we're enjoying, what we aren't. It's essentially like the intro, but a better version of it.
I hope it's better. I'm gonna work hard on it being better.
Yes, absolutely. So I don't know if we really need an intro or not, but Tyler, what you be playing?
I have been playing quite a bit in the last little while. I believe when we last spoke, I had just gotten into Demon Souls on the PS5.
I think you're about halfway through, maybe.
So something like that. I have now gotten to the end of Demon Souls, and it was a very pretty game, and definitely scratched that nice, tricky, mechanical Souls itch that people who know and have gotten fond of the series just know. Although, I'm not going to say it wasn't my favorite that I played so far. Now, mind you, my experience with the Soulsborne-esque games is pretty minimal. We're just Dark Souls 1, Bloodborne, and now Demon Souls, but it's not that I didn't like it, but it's not about to be my favorite.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, Dark Souls 1 is wonderful. Dark Souls 3 is great. Dark Souls 2, it's weird because if you remember back when I was playing it, I was complaining a lot about it. All honesty, like just weird gimmicks, and I still stand firm on that point, but I'm actually having fond memories of playing it.
I feel like it's, the point has been made several times that it's not a bad game. It's just a bad Souls game. And
yeah,
I'm sure it has its weird things that you can, I don't know. It's still going to be a good time to play. Just, you can't have it sit toe-to-toe with the other one.
No. And I mean, let's be honest, I played worse things.
I like a good bad game every now and again. It's actually weird the amount that we brought it up, and though I have yet to do it, I am actually looking forward to eventually playing that garbage fire that is Death Valley Rally.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that'll be a lot of fun. And I don't think Dark Souls 2 is going to be nearly as bad as that was. Although, thinking about it, I don't know which game seems more punishing.
Although, you know what I will say is, I don't think it's fair to say it's a bad game, because I don't think it is. But a game I just did not enjoy that I was really looking forward to was Neo.
Oh, yeah. So Neo and Dark Souls 2, I feel like, are their biggest identity is just general cruelty.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
I'm curious about Neo 2.
I have heard Neo 2 is a much better of the both, and if I'm not mistaken,
more refined.
Did they not just get like a remastered collection for the both of them recently?
I don't know if it's remastered, but they both got like a collection.
There was a recent re-release.
5.
Yeah. I don't know if it... I do remember when Neo came out, and I was like, this looks pretty interesting, but it almost had a Red Dead Redemption 2 effect that the longer I looked at it, the less desirable it seemed.
I put a good 10 hours into it, and maybe not 10, maybe 5, but still a good chunk of time. It's not like a check it out and drop it style. And yeah, no, not my cup of tea.
It was a
But I
get
do want to try
invested
too,
in
because
trophy.
if it is a more refined version, I may actually enjoy it.
Hmm. I have been enjoying the more modern side of things, though, beyond Demon Souls. I actually
Yeah. So what else are you into?
I circled back and I finally polished off Returnal, which
Oh, very good.
yeah, and it is one not the kind of game you should put down and go back to if you got into like what would essentially be, without being spoilery, like the second half of the game. It will kick your ass. But I finally got not the super secret ending with all the legwork, but the general, this is the main base game that we wanted you to accomplish ending. And so
Here's some credits.
it I feel like I have beaten the game, and if I want more out of it, it is just that, more. And I might circle back to it at one time because I had a lot of fun, especially with the it was like DLC that I got maybe a year later, and it was like a kind of an endless dungeon gauntlet. And
Yep.
it does seem to actually also have its fair share of lore as well as co-op, which I'm sure is a great feature, but I'm not in any rush to do it. Uh, but yeah, I had a great time with Returnal. I would highly recommend it. It's an interesting game because, and now we can definitely save this for a dedicated topic one day, just roguelikes in general. But it felt like one of the first big AAA roguelikes, right? You could argue Hades, but Hades still holds that indie moniker as where,
They're still very much indie.
yeah, and I would say because Returnal, if I'm not mistaken, they were an indie dev team that were picked up by Sony or contracted by Sony for an exclusive. I couldn't tell you the exact details of
Something like that,
Returnal,
yeah.
but it was kind of fresh to see a AAA level, like deep roguelike kind of experience. Its biggest downfall, I think, though, and I think this might come with the scope of it, but runs take way too long in that game to have that kind of snappy addictiveness that a good roguelike has.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I find that, you put about 2 hours into a run and then you're put down. Like, I'm probably going to pause it and get up for a minute, as where you're playing something like Hades, Binding of Isaac, things of that nature. 20 minutes in, out, and then you end up sinking like 6 hours into it because they feel like such bite sized experiences. And then oh my God, it's 4 in the morning.
And that was one of the big talking points when Returnal first released is people were complaining that you couldn't pause the game because if you turned off the console, whether it was sleep or not, it canceled your run out.
Yes, they did mitigate that. I mean, since I've played it, it has had the suspend feature. And
Yep.
I am all for, punishing roguelikes and all that kind of stuff. I think the fact that you can't, like, sleep mode your save file, though, is just really rude.
Especially when it's targeted, like Returnal's rated M, right? Not that people actually pay attention to the ratings or anything like that, but it's rated M,
I didn't
right?
know that, actually. I'll have
I
to double check.
it might be teen,
But it's not E.
regardless, it's not E. And so when these are targeted toward people, there's going to be adults, there's going to be teenagers, anyways, that they're aiming for. They should know that, hey, we have busy lives. We don't always have the opportunity to sit down for a couple hours and play. And you know what? There's something else I'm going to tag into this later on. Just as a kind of general talking point, I want your opinion on something. But we have busy lives. We can't just dedicate a certain, or we might have to go quickly for something. And you're going to punish me for that? Like, I don't know. It
Considering that.
feels punishing for no reason.
So typically, things of a roguelike nature are usually what I would call my side game. And
Yep.
because they have that very snappy pick up and play kind of nature to them. And this one could never feel like that. And again, I think it's an incredible game. Anyone who's got a PS5 and is at least like remotely interested in a good third person action game, especially too, like flavor wise, if you like Metroid, this is cool. Like it's
Oh,
surprisingly
absolutely.
Metroid in its design. The protagonist is really interesting. The plot is not super mindfucky, but presented in a very mindfucky way that keeps it incredibly engaging. So
And if you haven't gathered yet, I love the mindfucky things.
I think it's really well done. It's not to get too spoilery, but it toes the line of like time travel kind of stories. It's not a time travel story, but it deals with those kind of levels of complexity, right? And they string you
Yeah,
along with little bits of confusion. And yeah, this is my short review after completing Returnal. I would give it a arbitrary positive number rating.
fair enough.
Yeah,
It's
interpret that,
it's
listeners.
yeah, no, number ratings are stupid.
Yeah,
That's one of the games I really got to go back to at some point.
I
It was a drop game. I need to fix that.
it's a good
Backlog.
time.
We've talked about drop games. We've talked about backlog.
Yeah, they
We'll
are
get to it.
two sides of the same evil coin of time consumption. I have been playing a
Yes.
few other things, but I'll pass the court to you. I'm sure you've also been playing a handful of games lately.
A couple, yeah. I picked up it was $20 on Steam. It was a detective style game. It was called Shadows of Doubt.
Ooh, you
And it's
mentioned
still
this
early
briefly.
access.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's in early access right now, but so when you generate up a world and whatnot, because it's all procedurally generated, murders are random and all that, but everything has like a link to it. So when it generates the world, you can choose the city size that you want to work in. It'll create a whole bunch of people, so upwards of 100 people, who all have connections with other people in the city, partnerships they work with. Everyone has their own identity. They all have
That
their job that they go to at certain times. They all have their own individual fingerprints. They all have all their own certificates and birthdays and whatnot. And what really got me is the fact that I could walk into an apartment building that has 16 floors and I could enter every single apartment building in there.
Mischievous.
That's a lot of rooms.
That is a lot, especially
So,
for procedurally generated.
yes. And they actually had quite a bit of variation, so it wasn't always the same, which was neat. And the murders are randomly generated, and you got to try and figure those out. So you'll eventually get, when it's reported to the police, because you aren't technically part of the police. It's a very dystopian future after a nuclear fallout. But you get a little scanner feed thing saying, "Oh, there's been a murder here," and so you can race up to that area, and there's always going to be a policeman or woman standing outside, and it's all taped off and everything. And it's like, okay, well, if you just walk into a crime scene, you're going to be arrested, and by arrested, I mean shot to death.
Oh no, like Grand Theft
Because
Auto arrested.
yes, very much so. So you want to sneak into the crime scene, check out the cadaver, and figure out how they were killed, and try and get an estimated time. Start looking around for clues on what it might be. You might find a piece of crumpled paper, giving you some kind of hint. You might have something written in blood on the wall from the killer. You might just have fingerprints. Like if you see the safe is open, chances are they're robbing the person. If there's a message, chances are it could be a coworker or a close friend, or it could just be a mindless, senseless murder. But
Randomly
you have
generated
to,
crime.
yeah. So you got to try and find their fingerprints and try and figure out who it is. And the only real criteria when you're filing the case report is you got to find out who it was and submit that. But you can also make extra money by arresting them, getting their name, which was the requirement, finding the murder weapon, finding out where they live, just essentially building a profile against that suspect.
Oh,
And
kind of like
then
building
once
up
you
a
hand in,
score.
yeah, pretty much. And once you submit the case, it'll come back whether you succeeded or failed. And yeah, it's a good time. It's really weird. It's really unique. And just the whole investigative nature of it is really well done. Now, being early access, I'm looking forward to seeing what else they add in.
So, like, what kind of gameplay is it like? Like, is it a first-person kind of game? Is it like an isometric adventure kind of game?
It's all in first person,
Okay.
and the world's kind of it. Okay, so bad way to explain it, but the only way I can really think of is kind of like 3D pixels, voxels,
Okay. Yeah. That's a
with
that's a
with
rather
a
popular look these days.
Yeah, and it's very film noir
Hmm.
kind of thematical setting.
Interesting.
So that was a lot of fun. And as for so I actually beat that because they do have an ending currently.
Hmm.
And now I have moved on to a game that I've said for ages I'm going to get back to, and I never did. And then they just released a DLC. That is Dead Cells.
Oh, the return
And
to
this has the,
Castlevania in the Return to Dead
yes,
Cells. Oh, that's
the
exciting.
Return to Dead Cells with Return to Castlevania. And that's just, it's nostalgia and new age just punching me in the face. I love it.
I really liked Dead Cells. It was actually like something I picked up really early on when I got my Switch. And when I pick up my copy of Dead Cells Castlevania, I will now own 2 copies of it. And you know what?
I do as well now.
That's just fine by me.
Technically 3 copies because I have it on the PC as well.
I hard copies. That's
Hard
where
copies, I got 2 now.
it's like a sequel, but it's still the same game. And no,
Yes.
I'm really looking forward to it. I remember it was really hard when it first came out, and it took
Okay,
me.
so
Oh,
one thing I'm noticing now that I'm playing it again, it has gotten a lot easier.
yeah,
Now, when I first played it, so much has changed from them because I was only doing I when I first played it, it was early access on Steam.
mm,
And most of the enemies had the same model, they were just different colors. So okay, if you haven't played the game and can't imagine, I apologize. But Tyler, you know the green enemies and the pink enemies? The pink enemies like throw bombs when they see you,
yeah. And the
and the
green
green
ones are
enemies
just
just
kind of
leap at
like,
you.
yeah, they're like little zombie guys.
Those used to be the same model.
Oh, interesting.
Just one was pink, one was green.
So you were very much playing it when it was still within its conceptual phases.
That there was no mutations, there was no forge or anything. There was just the setup for getting your items and dumping your cells into.
So did it still have different weapon types that you could pick up? Because I know like when I first picked up the game, it had a decent variety, but then it eventually got an update which added like the really wacky like springy hammer, and I can't even imagine how much stuff they've added since. Because when I last played it, it was I can't remember what it's called specifically, but it was like its first big content update called like Rise of the Giants or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So there was weapon variety and everything, but yeah, nothing compared to what it is now.
have you gotten the frying pan? The
Yes, a
frying
couple
pan.
times.
I think it's kind of become the what's the character in Dead Cells called? The prisoner?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's kind of become his iconic staple weapon. I know, like in all the animated shorts that they release for the game, which are incredible, by the way, for those who have not seen them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think the frying pan has become the weapon of choice. And if I'm not mistaken, isn't it just like a high crit rate weapon or something like that?
Yes, I believe so.
And
And I think it actually, so I could be very wrong on this, so if I am, whoops. But I'm pretty sure that it was added in because of PUBG, Players Unknown Battleground.
I could believe that.
Because one of the weapons in there that you could get, the melee weapon, was a frying pan, a cast iron pan,
Yeah.
and it would ricochet bullets from people shooting at you. So it was great to have.
I wouldn't be surprised if you can ricochet projectiles with it as well. And Dead Cells, I'm aware, has become one of those, like, it sounds weird to say, but like, it's in the club of the upper echelon of indie games. Like, it's you hanging out with guys like Shovel Knight and Hotline Miami and stuff like
All those
that.
friends.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's got a whole bunch
Okay.
of collaborative content now, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. So I know, like after the third death or something. So it is a roguelike. So if you don't know, but after the third death and you go back, there's like a little manuscript, a book thing that you can read, and it'll give like little tidbits. And it started off with none other than Blasphemous, but
Oh,
because there's a Blasphemous costume in there that you can get.
satisfied.
Uh, but it brought up Shovel Knight, it brought up Blasphemous, it brought up Hotline Miami, Risk of Rain, Terraria. Uh, One that shocked me, Skull.
Oh, I like Skull.
Yep.
That's nice.
So, but there's like 20 different collaborations. Slay the Spire
This is just a
had the
random thing
Ironclad.
to interject just about Skull that I remembered. It's wacky that it's the same publisher as Skull, a very off the radar indie game that is doing Lies of P.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, but no, it's not. Did they even have? I don't think they had Shantae content in Dead Cells.
I don't
I
know.
don't think they've
Maybe.
done any of the way forward stuff yet. Um, oh, I'm excited to return to Dead Cells, return to Castlevania.
So the Return to Castlevania stuff is you don't find it on your first run or two. Now you've beat Dead Cells as is, so this probably won't even pertain to you. But it's essentially just another path off of the first zone.
Yeah, that's what they did with the previous big DLC expansion, I believe. Is there was at the beginning there was this big door that you could go through, and that would be kind of like how you would just kick off the DLC area, right? And
Yes,
I think that's very polite. I think it would be because Dead Cells could be a very challenging game to begin with, and if they're trying to sell this DLC to people who have never played it, it would kind of suck knowing you had to beat the base game first, which you still should. It's great, but before you actually can access the content that you bought it for.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, and the Castlevania music that they have in it is all hard rock based.
Okay, so I've actually already listened to the soundtrack.
Okay, it's fucking great.
Yeah,
I love it.
yeah,
I
and
love it.
there's also like I don't know where these would be in the game itself yet, but there was like a bunch of 8-bit renditions, like in the Castlevania classic Castlevania style of the Dead Cells music in the soundtrack as well.
Okay,
Yeah, no, it's I
I
Castlevania
like
music's
that.
great, and I don't recall the Dead Cells soundtrack being like mind blowing, but it wasn't in any way offensive. Like I enjoyed it while I played. And
Absolutely.
so to hear Castlevania music in like that Dead Cell style, because there was kind of like almost like acoustic guitar, like lute, but almost backed with a bit of heaviness to it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's I don't know, but it's a fun time. Dead Cells is good, snappy, and surprisingly one of the few times that I have been okay with someone going Metroidvania but roguelike. It's usually two genres you don't want to fuck with. But Dead Cells
No.
really figured out how if you randomly generate some of your biomes, but keep some familiar as well, it's a really
Have things
interesting.
set in stone.
Yeah, for example, like there's a couple keys that you need to unlock later parts of the levels in your run, and
Yep.
for the most part, like they might swap around their locations, but there's only like two different places that typically be from each other. So they make it so if you know the area well enough, you can still have a chance of actually achieving these things, which I think is just a brilliant design because I'm sure you've probably seen it pop up from time to time. I wouldn't be surprised if it was like a Steam darling for a bit, but I think it's called A Robot Named Fight. And
I've heard of it.
yeah, and it is a like highly randomly generated it's much more Metroid in design. Like it was essentially trying to be this is a randomly generated Metroid. And I would always look at it and go, as much as I like these things, this mashup just seems awful and the odds of a successful run before compared to a sloppy run, not so much.
Yeah, and that's something that you got to think about too. Like just because you like both genres does not mean it's going to be good together.
No. And I think a good roguelike, if they do have any kind of like raw progressional elements, they are very smart when they incorporate this kind of design. Risk of Rain, the first one, and to an extent the second one as well. The second one's actually a little bit more strict with its biome, so it's harder to compare. But though they would change up some of the design, you could always rely on, like, if you go off to the side of the map and jump off this cliff, there is still going to be a secret area there to find such and such and so and so. And a little bit of reliability in a roguelike, I think, really helps to make it just good.
Yeah.
It depends on the kind of game that they're going for with the roguelike structure. Like something like Hades, Binding of Isaac, pure random. That works for me.
Yes,
So,
and you still have your permanent upgrades.
yep. Yep.
This has turned into a roguelike episode almost.
it is very much a topic that I could go super in depth about. Like this is just hardly scratching the surface of how I can
Yes.
go on about roguelikes. But how
And that's something that I guess we could be a little transparent about for episode topics. We have a bunch in the vault. It's just what do we feel like doing, and that's honestly how we've been going about choosing which topics to talk about next.
we're not a
Uh,
factory, we're handcrafted.
very handcrafted, and also very limited on time. Hence why we have no topic today.
How Speaking of topic, how did we start talking about roguelikes? It was what you were playing, wasn't it? Dead
Yeah, well,
Cells.
what I was playing, Dead
Yes.
Cells.
We have gone
uh,
astray.
well, I mean, the intro needed to blend into the main bulk of the show because it's one of the same.
Oops, all
Oops,
rambles.
just rambles.
Um.
So
So,
with that said, we did put out a post for people to write in
ooh,
to the
mail
show.
time. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mail time. So first one is from Switchblade Bray, and this is a bit of a longer one, but
What?
let's do it.
What an edgelord name.
Currently, my love and hate is first-person shooter games, or even just games with online platforms in general. They have become so dull and overdone after done years after Gear, cough, cough, Call of Duty, all the, okay, this is his English. We'll blame him for that. Also, the fact that they were never released finished, and they just make it so you have to wait for the game to be fixed with updates. But then something else breaks, and it's another update. By the time it's actually good, the next game is coming out. But I do love listening to the show. Keep it up, even though having a hard time playing all the games you recommend. And yeah, no, I can 100% get behind that whole notion, especially in like your modern AAA time frame now.
Well,
Like a lot of games are coming out kind of half baked, and you know what? That's when I played Final Fantasy 16. That was wonderful because I didn't have to wait for anything to be patched to be able to actually enjoy my time with it.
I mean,
So
when it comes to my thoughts on this, first of all, thank you, Switchblade Bray, for your question, comment, or concern, legal response. So this kind of actually pertains to what we were just talking about with Dead Cells, because the fact that it was a re-release,
yes,
because I have, and this is the struggles of, especially for, updates being necessary and patches are a pain in the ass in general. But when you are a collector of physical media, it becomes much more concerning for the fact that bought Dead Cells, I got a 1.0 version, and my goodness, is it ever going to be? It's so obsolete that I am buying a new physical version of it for all the content. Also, because it's a Castlevania game, so unrelated, necessary reason. But it is very frustrating. We often talk about the fact that, we go back to the good old days where you just pop the cartridge in and the games work. But we think about it as well, how many bad games there were from back then that
not
can't be
only
patched.
that, but let's look at like the first Final Fantasy for the NES.
Oh.
What year did it come out? 1980.
89? 88 maybe?
89?
I don't know, because I think we
Something
got
like
it in
that?
90 or 91, so it kind of muddies the water on that one. But early game,
Half those spells didn't work.
oh,
Half the mechanics of the game didn't work.
what is it? Wisdom does nothing. Wisdom or intelligence does nothing. Agility does nothing. There's a lot.
This is going to be another Final Fantasy dig, but Final Fantasy 6 or 3 in North America. Blah, blah,
Final
blah, blah.
Fantasy 6/3 is so incredibly busted. It is my absolute favorite final. But funny enough, I've never actually been one to cheese Final Fantasy 6.
No.
I've dabbled with it before, the whole vanish death mechanic, and yes, it works incredibly well.
Or the 52 doors. Is it 52 or 59?
I think that's Final Fantasy 4.
Is it 4?
I think
Okay.
I think it's 4 that you can trigger the endless doors. Because that's the one you trigger by going up and down stairs early on. It's actually an interesting speedrunning glitch if you do it right, but if you do it wrong, you will break the shit out of that game.
Oh, hell yeah.
But I guess in my conclusion or my thoughts on your comment is it sucks especially, if you've got 1.0 cartridges that are going to miss things once the internet apocalypse takes place, or server shutdowns, both possible.
Yes.
But
Server
it is
shutdowns would be the worst, but
it is also nice to live in an age where improvements don't always necessarily mean purchasing a new version of the game. So like Street Fighter 2 and its many iterations, or even like the first Pokemon games that came out were also just busted.
and that's not even including the fixed version that we got in North America.
Just busted, just not as much.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's my thoughts
But
on that. Thank you.
yeah, no, it's sadly the state of the world now. They can get away with it, and unless people start voting with their pockets, it's never going to change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sadly.
Should should we move on to our second comment, because we have one?
Yes. Yes, you do it.
All right. This comment comes from GareBears49, and he says, "Long-time listener, first-time caller. Your show is awesome. I might be biased because we are all good friends. We sure are. But you guys ramble on about the best stuff, lol. Now, to my question, which game through any system is your favorite, other than Final Fantasy? Pick one and go." So clearly, we have a bit of a reputation for being Final Fantasy fans, which
They're just so easy to talk about.
we were just
Like-
talking about Final Fantasy. And see, I think because this is a question and I can give an honest answer. I mean, it's nothing taboo to keep it, but it's one of those games that I wasn't going to bring up because I want to do a topic about it. But hey, the people want to know. I'm going to tell them. And my favorite game of all time is
Chrono Trigger.
No, but God, do I ever
I had
love
to get
Chrono
it in
Trigger?
there.
No,
I had to get it in there.
we are not shy about our fondness for Chrono Trigger, but no, the one game that holds the closest fondness to my heart is a little-known game called Trials of Mana, or as I knew it for most of my life, Seiken Densetsu 3, which is the third game in the Mana series for Super Nintendo. Super Nintendo is gonna be my favorite thing till the end of time, and I'm not gonna go too in depth about it, but I will say, like, for the longest time, this game was like, that not like secret, but it's the one thing like I knew of that very few people did. I discovered it through emulation when I was quite young, and it's just so fun and so pretty, and everything about it is just so enjoyable. And now it exists in this side of the world. Buy it now on Switch, PlayStation 4, or other things maybe.
Yes, the Ouya.
Get it on ya, Ouya. So that would be my answer that is not Final Fantasy to Gare Bears. How about yourself?
So just to add into you that you actually introduced me to Seiken Densetsu 3
Yeah.
or Trials of Mana because we
It's
have a
special.
proper name. It's really good, and it kind of got me into the Mana series.
It's
All honesty.
And it's such a weird, wacky series that unfortunately had some major downfalls once we got beyond Legend of Mana. It never really gained it was always a very niche franchise, but I
Yeah.
know they just stumbled. It was in some dark days at the early conception of Square Enix where they kind of kirbied the Mana franchise in the sense that it became the experimental spin-off, and that's kind of what ran the IP into the ground for a little while there. Like, there is a tactics game, there was what was an attempt at like a randomly generated almost MMO-style DS game. Like, the Mana franchise got weird.
Yeah.
But those first 4 games are all solid and worth people's times.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So as for my favorite game, this one is kind of hard now, cause depending on the mood, it flops. Okay, so I said this earlier that I like the good mindfucky kind of more psychological games,
Oh.
the games that get you really psychologically thinking and kind of hit you psychologically. How many times can I say that in a minute?
Psychological.
So before I would have said hands down Mother 3, and I don't know if we plan on ever doing an episode on the Mother series or not, because you've only really played Mother 3.
And it is worth a topic all in its own. but I do want to get Earthbound out of the way one day. I've played enough of Mother 1 to know, fuck that. But
Yes.
I
Yeah, Mother 1 is like the Dark Souls 2.
so I feel like Earthbound is going to pull me through it the same way that Secret of Mana did. Funny how that transitioned. And I initially, because I think I mentioned it before on per several previous episodes at this point, when I did play through Secret of Mana this year, that like I never really liked that game at all. And the same goes with Earthbound. Like I played it a whole bunch, and I've just never gotten to really
And
get that
when you say
enjoyment.
play, you didn't get very far,
I
but
mean,
you've played it multiple times to a
yeah.
certain point.
And I want to say, like, the most time that I would have invested into Earthbound would be in about the hour and a half to 2 hour range, however long it takes to get to that first major plot point. But something I have known for many years, and I have done in my own time, is listen to the soundtrack for Earthbound. And it's really, really good. And
It
sometimes a
is.
good soundtrack is enough to get me through it.
Yep. Like you
Yeah.
said, Secret of Mana. And
Yeah.
then it turns out that you didn't mind it at all.
No, if anything, I would actually put Secret of Mana like in my top 20 SNES games now. Like it really changed my impression of it once I got like past that initial I don't know phase, and it really sunk its teeth into me. So
Yeah.
I'm willing to give Earthbound another shot just because of how much I enjoy Mother 3, because that was a game that, as you were aware, considering you spent a good while. Hey, trade off favorite games, playing it off. That's what pals do. And
Yep.
yeah, I finally got around to Mother 3, and what a special game. My goodness.
It is. It
So,
is very, very special. Now,
Earthbound
with that
2.
said,
Yes, you said you were flippity floppity.
yes. So Mother 3 I love because it's quirky, it's fun, uh, and it's a great story, especially when you start deep diving into it, like
Yeah.
the meanings and everything.
It's
I,
it's
I
it's a
guess that's what
fun
I really
tale.
like.
It's a fun game, but it's also not afraid to take itself seriously, right? And it takes itself
It's
seriously in all the right points.
it's a fun game with a tragic tale.
It is a very tragic tale, but it's not, you know, shy about the tragic tale, which I think is really nice, but it's also not done in a way that feels jarring to the rest of the world. I don't know. It's hard for me to explain why it works so well, and people should just check it out.
Yes. And the other one that kind of flips is Amori.
Ah,
And I feel like this is no surprise
how many
to anyone
mentions
who's
of
been
that do we
listening to
have
us.
now? Yeah,
A lot, a
we
lot.
brought that one up on net. Well, to when we started this podcast, hadn't you like just finished it, or it had like just come out on Switch?
I just finished it, yeah. Something like
Yeah.
that.
So I
Or it
still
came out on Switch in July, and that's when I got it. I got it on release and played it pretty much on release on the Switch.
ah
So, and I played through it 3 times and got every ending, and we started up in October. So we're coming up on a year of
gee,
doing this.
oh my goodness.
So Amori, that one is definitely rated M. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah.
It looks like a cute, cuddly thing, and it's only when you realize, and this isn't a spoiler, but it's when you realize that everything cute is covering up the tragedy.
Symbolism.
Yes.
Psychology.
The game is literally filled with fucking symbolism,
Yeah. I'm
like everywhere.
and it keeps it like, it's masked in this very cute, almost pencil crayon-esque designed world, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's pixel art is very basic, but then like its animations, the photos, the everything else is like in a very nice crown artistic view. And it's absolutely wonderful in that sense. It's a very heartbreaking tale, a very like traumatic tale. It gives you a warning right off the hop. This game is gonna have people some trigger issues. Uh, you look on the Steam reviews, and I think the top review for it is "Thanks, I'm depressed now."
What is it? That's like the one review for Final Fantasy IX. I was like 10 out of 10. Now I have depression.
Yes.
Yeah. Good old VV.
So, yeah, it's a hard sell to a lot of people because of how it looks and everything, but And it's not a difficult game by any means. I think it has a lot of really neat mechanics that could be expanded on. But as for its story, the way that it presents trauma and the way that it just explains the story with symbolism is just phenomenal.
Well, and this is
So,
also where I'm going to take my opportunity to call back to our legendary episode 1 on turn-based battles, and that you don't like them, and yet you have 2 games as your
yes,
favorite of all time as
yes.
turn-based
Which I
battles.
don't think during the first episode we actually went back to, but we said we were going to go back to. So,
Oh yeah,
oh, and also anyone who's been with us since episode 1, thank you so much for the support. Anyone listening right now, thank you for the support.
yeah.
We can't listen to those early episodes anymore.
Oh no, no, I feel like I have officially become a true content creator now solely due to the fact that our earliest work makes me cringe and my spine tingle.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
So thanks for the question, Gary. Sorry I don't really have a number 1 because it really depends on my mood, but yeah, Mother 3 and Namori, and for Tyler it's Seiken Densetsu 3 or Trials of Mana.
Yeah, the original, not the
The
remake.
SNES version.
Yeah, the
The
remake
remake was
was
okay.
a pleasant thing to get, but I'll save my thoughts on that when we have a more deep dive on the game itself. It will happen. It
Yes.
has to.
So last comment I got is from GX Gamer of the GX podcast.
Not a first-time
And
caller.
not a first time caller. No,
No.
absolutely not. Have either of you seen the newest Mario Bros. Movie? What's a game series you want to see made into a movie? So I did see. Me and the wife went to the theaters and saw it in the theaters just because. I mean, come on. I grew up with Mario back in the fucking 80s, 90s, right? So, um, yes, I had to go see this out of anything the child trapped inside me. And yeah, I liked it. I don't like what they did with Cranky Kong.
Cool.
That thing was abysmal.
I didn't care much for Cranky Kong's character. Yeah, it was certainly one of the least. So I recently watched it and I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun.
It's nothing phenomenal. It's just a good time.
Yeah, well, it did a really good job of like having those nice, gave me them warm fuzzies with all the references and stuff, but it wasn't super like, see, we're making a reference. It actually all felt like nice and natural to it.
Except for the GameCube ringtone. That was kind of in your face.
Yeah, but that was cute. I enjoyed that.
It was.
And,
It was great.
the very obscure. Okay, so here's a couple things about I'm gonna get into very minor spoiler territory for people who have not seen the Mario movie. So skip ahead maybe, I don't know, like 3-4 minutes, and probably even a minute for the point that I'm gonna make. But I don't know the interjection. But it's weird to me. Here it comes, folks. That Mario has parents.
And the father is the original Mario voice.
That is a charming little detail, but it was weird. Although it was kind of funny how like the Mario Bros are like, what would you say? Like, they're like in their early 20s just trying to like, start out in the world in this plot of theirs.
Yeah, and it's very much the old nostalgia style Brooklyn.
Yeah, it was
right?
Yeah, it was very cute, and I think for myself as well. Now, similar point where I grew up with Mario, even if it's not kind of my movie, I would still kind of need to see it. It just feels important. Haven't done so with the Sonic movie yet, and we'll eventually get to that inevitable train wreck of Monster Hunter. Oh, I'm excited for that one. But I enjoyed it. I think my girlfriend made the best point about the movie, though, is if I was like in the range of like 8 to 12, I would watch this movie every damn day.
Which let's be honest, it's made for kids.
Yes.
And it's also made to play off nostalgia, so.
Yep, and you know what? I think it did a fine job. Now, as for the question of a movie franchise I would like to, or a video game franchise I would like to see a movie of, I don't know. Do you have anything in mind? Because I could circle back with this. I got a few that I want to...
Okay, so if we're sticking with, like, big IPs, there's a few I could think of, but I think one that would be really cool would be Metroid.
I think so.
Like a dark, gritty Metroid.
Are we? Are we? I don't have the comment, so I can't tell. Is it exclusively Nintendo or just video game?
Just, I think it was video games.
Okay,
And
now
now my phone's locking up, so I can't tell you.
I don't know.
What's a game series you want to be made into a movie?
So I don't think this would work as a movie, but I personally think this would work really well as like kind of like an HBO miniseries sort of thing. It just feels a little bit too big to tell that story. But Grand Theft Auto would be really cool as a TV show.
Yeah, I could see that.
I
If they did a miniseries, yeah.
I think that would be because a movie I feel like it would be really schlocky and like slapped together, kind of like I haven't seen them all, but like the Hitman movies where they seem like they wanted to cram a lot in and it just kind of felt messy.
Yeah.
Where if they had the time, like the breathing room for a series and stuff like that. But I guess if I want to answer specifically as a movie, you know what I would actually really like to see is Star Fox. I think Star Fox would be, and if they did it kind of like, the Illumination style for Mario and all that kind of stuff, I think that could go over really well.
I think that could be a good time, yeah.
I think there's a lot of fun to be explored in this kind of like universe of like, animal creatures that are just going to shoot each other down in space.
Although at the same time, I think if they're going to do that, they should have done that at the peak of 3D cinema.
Oh, very much so, yeah, because it's kind of hard to have impressive visuals now. Now you have to have impressive plot and stuff to go with it. And,
yes.
well, we're not getting games, so, I wouldn't want to say Mega Man. That sounds cursed.
Yep, but apparently they're doing it.
Yeah, but they've been apparently doing it for several years, and live action or CG, true. Or it's come and go so many times. Now, when it does happen, if it does, I have to see it. I'm obligated. But I fear because I know how little plot there is.
Bad man does bad things because he's jealous.
Yeah, and then he does it again. And again,
and then he
but
does
not
again.
this time. But actually,
and they don't put him in jail for 5 times.
Yeah, no, the 6th game was a momentous occasion. He finally got into jail. Until he
wasn't.
And
then he fucking broke out.
Yep. Oh, I love Mega Man so much.
Oh, why do we love these things, though? They're so stupid sometimes. Love it.
Sometimes all the... What even is the plot of Sonic?
Robotnik is...
He was kidnapping the animals and turning them into robots.
Well, not just that, he'd get them to be essentially generators, and he'd start putting the ones that were dying into robots.
Oh god, that's actually horrifying.
Yep.
Oh.
This is a kid's game, folks.
This is a kid's game, folks. Yeah, that was very swell. Thank you very much for your question. And
yes, thanks everyone for their comments, and you can always leave us one on our Twitter, because I refuse to call it X. Or Instagram at OptionalBossPC.
And we have an email too.
Yes, OptionalBossPodcast@gmail.com.
Ah, yes. It's
you can always send us something in there.
PC is where I get confused.
PC for social media.
Ah, gotcha.
Full explanation of what we actually are for email.
Yes, because this is a business.
It's not. It's just 2 idiots with microphones hoping that we're entertaining someone here.
Well,
and having a good time doing it.
This is very true.
One thing I kind of wanted to ask your opinion of, because I've actually got this a couple times from friends who aren't into video games, usually parents. And it's, how long should video games be allowed? Not so much age range, but like at a time. And I usually follow or answer that question, but with another question, and that's, how much TV do you watch?
Because I often notice in a day, like a play session, like how long should someone play video games? What is quote unquote healthy?
Yes. And I think it really comes down to, there's obviously going to be a lot of factors. Because at some point we do have us as adults anyways, not necessarily kids, homework, but as adults we have our responsibilities and everything. But the first question I always ask them is, how much TV do you watch? And they're like, oh, well, I like binging my shows on Netflix and all that. And I said, well, the thing with video games is, because of the just wide range of them, is you're thinking a lot more than vegging out on a couch.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that's a fair statement, right?
It is certainly, you're at least getting some engagement. So I don't look at playing video games like a lot of people look at playing video games, in the sense that, people who don't game quite like we do, it the activity itself is, it falls under the category of like lounging almost, right?
Yep.
That's why you can make that easy comparison of how long do you watch TV, because they are kind of in a similar vein. But when it's treated more like a hobby, and not going to get into things like, time looking at screens and whatnot. I think that's kind of a null argument, the amount of time people look at their phones and etc. So I think we're past the point of, you
Yes.
looking at screens too long. But
Don't get too close to the TV. Here's a VR set so you can glue them to your eyes.
you can be as close to the TV as people could not dream of. Yes. Now, for myself, how I get, because I don't get as much time to game as I would like, adulting, etc. But
Yes.
I acknowledge and embrace gaming as my hobby. And due to this, I'll dedicate the amount of time I feel I desire. Now, that said, I keep my responsibilities in check for the most part. So maybe some laundry or some dishes might not get done in the most timely fashion sometimes if I'm really into something. But for the most part, I get my priorities taken care of. And then most of my gaming is relegated to just days off when I get the chance. And
Yep.
even still, it depends on my investment at the time, for how long I will actually have a session. The odd, more often than not, I'll game for an hour and a half, 2 hours, take a little bit of a break, do a couple other things, chill out, and then go back for another hour and 2 hours or so. Sometimes I will play for several hours at hand. And I think personally, when it comes to, like, if I was giving a recommendation or my life advice to the younger generation, it would be, as long as you prioritize your time and use it wisely, I don't think there is so much as too much if you're doing what you enjoy, right?
Yeah.
So,
And that's the thing. As long as you aren't getting addicted, as long as you aren't like avoiding the outside, you should still get outside, especially as a kid.
hey, we did that today.
Especially as anyone. Yeah, we did. Oh God. Okay, so here's another thing. It was golfing video games that got me to go out to a golf course and actually try golfing for the first time.
Nice on.
Yes, no, it was NES Open Tour.
Ooh. Me, it's
so
Mario Golf 64, and I want this to come back one day, and if Nintendo's willing to bring back Pokemon Snap, I hold hope for this, but Kirby's Dream Course.
Yes.
Yes.
That would be good.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't heard a Kirby release in a while.
No.
So maybe.
But go on.
But yeah, as long as you're taking care of your responsibilities and you're not just sucking all your free time into one hobby, like no one should treat a hobby like that.
Yeah.
You do a hobby as something to look forward to. You do too much of a thing, then it doesn't become a hobby anymore. It can be a detriment.
Yep.
And if you need proof of that, look at water. We need water, but if you spend too much time in it, guess what? You're drowning. So, too much of a good thing can be a bad thing.
I should drink more water.
So, I think that there's still a negative stigma. It's not nearly as bad as it is nowadays, or as it once was. But it's still around. Like, video games are for children. Video games are a waste of time.
Ironic flip side, though. There are people now, and we would have dreamed of this in the 90s, who have legitimate careers of playing video games. Well, okay.
Making a hell of a lot more than you and me combined.
I use the word legitimately loosely, not saying it's not a legit career, but also we're getting into a whole discussion of what a career actually is at that point. But you know what I mean? There are people who are actually making a living off of playing video games now, and that is so cool. But on the flip side of that, like, don't get me wrong, it would be really cool if I could make money playing video games. But when that becomes my job, it does become concerning, because this is what I do to relax from, like, my job and the general life.
Absolutely.
So I would be afraid of losing the passion in it, but it also comes with what surrounds playing the game, right? People aren't just getting paid to just sit on the couch and play games. They are, but they also are, required to be, to a degree, entertaining and I don't know what the actual schedule of a true gamer is, but it seems like they actually work more than I do.
Yes, to be like the content creator streamer,
Oh yeah, you're looking at like a
kind of.
minimum 8 hours a day, and constant communication, and then being up on your socials, and like people should know we're not up on ours.
Oh God, no! I can't stand Twitter. Instagram's not bad, but I feel stupid just posting random shit.
I like it, but yeah, I know what you mean. It's hard to just post stuff, and yeah,
Yeah, so if you ever wonder why our social media is always a little lackluster, that's why.
because we're
Because
old.
we hate it.
Yes,
Not quite the boomers, but boomer mentality.
we're getting there. Yeah,
Ah.
yeah. Uh, well, well,
But yeah, no, that was just something. Just yeah. How long should someone be allowed to game for? Well, how long do you watch TV for?
well, and
How
funny enough, because
how long do people brag that they binged a series
I don't really brag about the
over a
fact that
weekend?
I spent so much time trying to catch M all in Pokemon Alpha Sapphire, and I know that took several hours. And
Yes.
that one, I keep that one for me. I did that. That was my accomplishment. That's not gonna go on a resume. Like,
But it's almost like the weird social norm of it all. It just throws me off. It's
yeah.
like how you see drinking advertisements everywhere. Like I was coming home at 6 a.m. the other day listening, and on the radio was a drinking advertisement for vodka or something. And it's
I
like,
saw I saw an
okay,
advertisement for alcohol the other day that actually really bothered me. I can't remember what it was about.
but then there's none for smoking. Smoking is bad.
And we're not about to be here making the argument that it's not, but it's like pick a lane with your evils, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
you can't say they're both evil.
Yeah. Now, to go back on the how much time you spend on a game though, flip side of that towards the game industry is it's interesting how you're seeing a lot more in reviews these days and whatnot, especially too with like the priority is create as much content available. Like, games are getting bigger in size and trying to offer you more. But I've seen more and more popping up in reviews of things. A big factor of enjoyment is how respectful a game is of your time.
Yes.
And
And
it
I think that's something that needs to be really, really driven home nowadays.
Well, the fact that and I'm normally not one to try to gauge my experience, but the fact that resources like how long to beat are actually so valuable because of this fact, like I want to get into a game, what kind of a time investment am I looking at? Yeah, 40 hours? Geez, we better set some stuff aside. Like,
Yes. And I don't know about you, but like when I see or when I'm deciding on what to play next, I often look at how long it is and people are like, "Oh yeah, this game has hundreds of Okay, great example. Breath of the Wild and Tonic. I still have not played the new Zelda game because I just hearing how long you can spend in that game just makes me disinterested.
well, and like
And
I
one
said,
thing I've noticed, if it reaches around that 40 hours, I'm kind of checked out at that point. Like I've had my fill. I want to move on to something else.
that's a good length in my mind. I think 40 hours is a nice, like, that's about how long time I spent in Demon Souls. And by the time I was done with it, I'm like, that was a satisfying experience. I am finished with this for now, right? And
I think a big part of that is you get stuck in the same kind of area, same thematical type of zone. Like, uh, now any Horizon fans, please don't yell at me if I'm wrong,
where
but
are they?
you can yell at Tyler.
Yep.
um, but yes, it's robot dinosaurs with a lot of grassy, like overgrown areas, right? So you're gonna
Yeah.
have your metals and your grassy areas and some villages of almost like a medieval style, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or not medieval style. Or I guess village wise, yeah.
Post
Medieval style.
apocalyptic, I'd say, is a better way to describe it.
Yeah, in a sense. You're gonna see a lot of grass and torn down metal. And if you're expecting someone to play for 80, 100 hours in that kind of area, you're getting a lot of that at once. You're
Well,
not seeing a flip in zones. You're not seeing a flip of environments,
and not
right?
even so much an environmental fatigue in my mind, but a mechanical fatigue is really what does it for me, right?
Yep.
I I like a good game and I can play the shit out of a good game for a long time, but eventually, I'm gonna crave something a little different. And oftentimes when I come off of those like really big single, again, gonna take it back to Demon Souls, right? You're doing the one thing in Demon Souls. There's not a whole lot of gameplay variety. The game is great. There's a lot to do, but at the same time, at the end of the day, it is just you're just doing hard combat and exploration, right? And so after something like that, I'll probably pop in something like Mega Man X, and I want something zippy and platformy and stuff like that. I want something that feels different after a while, and
Absolutely.
something like Tears of the Kingdom, which I had a blast with, but I sunk about 80 hours into it before I finally got to the end. And now, mind you, it was very much like I had my fill and then I chose to end it. That's kind of how the game rolls. But at the same
Yep.
time, I, like I said, did probably 50% of what was in that game. I can't possibly be
If that.
expected to do everything. I want to? Kind of, but also kind of not, because there's just so much. This is also why I have made several points about how I've been excited to get into Elden Ring, and I just don't feel like starting it because it's so big. And people have told me, well, you can actually beat it in like less than so and so hours, but I'm like, but that's not what I want. But I also don't
No,
want
you,
something
you,
big
you want to be
now.
able to take your time and explore. And the nice thing with Elden Ring is it'll take you out of that environmental fatigue. And because there's such a variety of enemies, it's not all you can't approach every situation the same.
And
So it does
weapons
change
and
up your mechanics. As for
yeah,
bosses, I mean, yeah, you're still gonna have variations, but yeah, it's like any other Souls game, right?
yeah.
So same with Dark Souls 3.
I'm also finding great appreciation in a nice short game. I actually recently started, and I know you were heavily anticipating me starting this, but Inscription. And
Yes.
I know I'm getting into a bit of a short endeavor with that, and I'm very comfortable with that right now. I've also, maybe sunk about 2 hours into it. Like I haven't had a lot of time with it right now, but oh, it is cool. I really like the card game. I am a big fan of card games, which, funny enough, I'm not only playing Inscription as a card game because of it recently came out on the Switch Online. I finally getting around to trying the Pokemon trading card game,
Oh yes.
and it's solid. And also, aside from that, now this is just something like I'm not actually seriously investing my time in it. I just felt like booting it up. Popped in. I couldn't tell you which one specifically. There's a bunch, but just one of the random Yu-Gi-Oh games for Game Boy Advance. I've just been in a
Oh yeah.
card playing way.
Well, that's exciting that you're checking out Inscription.
I
Everyone should check out Inscription. It's wacky, and out of all the genre splicing that we've seen, like we were talking about earlier,
yeah.
um, out of all the genre splicing, a roguelike card building escape room.
Oh, but thematically, I think it's really good. Like just the fact that
It does a really good job, yeah.
the the premise of the game, it's almost like D&D. Now, I am not someone who can explain D&D, but to explain the premise of like the game and how I mean it, like the whole thing is you're just playing this game with this person and they are doing all these things to immerse you, like, changing the environment, the lighting and all that stuff, putting on the different masks for the different characters as they tell the story. And
Yes.
it's really cool how it immerses you like that. Like I'm not going to go into it too deeply because, if people want to play it, it's a game that I wouldn't want details about, and I don't think people should get them.
You want
But
to go in blind, but there's some
or
things that are like expected,
but this is
right?
this is one I very much see being covered on a future Mindy's when we finally get ourselves a nice little catalog to check out. For
Yes, and
that.
we will definitely put up spoiler warnings.
Oh yes, no. People who know us know that if you're listening to a Mindy's, you're getting a bite-sized, deep look. Going front teeth all in. I have to stop this analogy before it gets strange.
So actually, something I forgot, something I did pick up and play and beat and 100%. Speaking of Mindy's, was Tunic,
Yeah. I
which is
also
another one that
recently.
you don't want to give too many details about.
No, that's currently
But
sitting on my shelf in its wrap still, in the backlog, looking at me, going, "When, Papa?"
so I have opinions because this has been like really praised to high heavens.
Ooh,
Um,
I have a question when you're done with your opinions.
okay. The game is absolutely great. Its puzzles maybe a little too cryptic and up its own ass, but still really, really good. To finish off the last couple puzzles, I did use a guide. Sue me, deal with it. I need to do other things with my life other
Yeah.
than try and figure out a 20 combination puzzle.
Cryptic. Yeah,
um,
no, I wouldn't fault you for a guide for something super complex. If you're getting into
but
the post game stuff, yeah.
it's really good. It was a lot of fun. Didn't care for the combat. Thought the combat sucked.
So because they are two games that now I know they do things very differently, but like I think you could put them beside each other in something that at least looks similar enough to make the comparison. But what would
Death's
you
Door?
say? I was just gonna say, yeah. What do you think you had a better time with, Tunic or Death's Door?
Um, damn.
Yeah, because I
Damn.
so Death's Door wasn't as good as I thought it would be, but that doesn't mean it wasn't really, really, really good.
Death's Door, combat wise and general gameplay, I liked a lot more.
Yeah,
But the world of Tunic and its puzzles, and now as you just said that it can be too cryptic, it can go up its own ass.
yeah.
But at the same time, with how cryptic some of the stuff was, I thought it was really neat and well done.
Hmm. That's
So
a
I
good way to say
appreciated
that
that.
they're both very
So
high
it really
quality.
depends.
Yeah.
They are very high quality, and it really depends on what I'm looking into. Did I want something a little more puzzle heavy where I got to think more? Or do I want something where I got to strategize my combat more?
This is actually a really good comparison for these two games, and it's also relevant because they just came out on the Switch Online. But Zelda Ages and Zelda Seasons.
Yes.
So like Tunic would be
Yes,
Ages,
absolutely.
and yeah, Death's Door would be Seasons, right? And so,
Yes.
ooh,
And
ooh,
for anyone who doesn't know that difference, the two Zelda games on Game Boy not Advance, Color, which was done by Capcom, Ages and Seasons.
Yep.
Ages was more puzzle heavy, where Seasons was more combat heavy.
Yep, and they complement each other quite well for being so different. And
They absolutely do.
yeah, so that's kind of interesting that Tunic is like that kind of flip side.
Yeah. No, it's I'm glad I played it, I'm glad I got it, and I'm glad it's to have it in the collection.
Harder question.
I don't care for the combat, but even still, it's still a solid game.
Because I know that it's very rooted in its design, because I know how Tunic is supposed to work. Not going to go into detail for those who don't. But which one wins in the charm department?
Charm as in how?
Quirkiness, just general, like, oh, that's neat.
Death's Door.
Okay. I can accept that because Death's Door was a painfully charming adventure.
It was.
Yeah.
The crowbar. Enough said.
That's a game I'm gonna enjoy when I go back to.
So something that you brought up though, when we were talking about Inscription was D&D.
Yeah.
Game that just released that I plan on getting the PS5 version.
Ooh,
when
Baldur's
it
Gate
becomes
3.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. As someone who played the original point and clicks on PC back in the day, I kind of want to redo them. I have the enhanced versions on Switch, so I probably should just buckle down and play them. But Baldur's Gate 3, done by Larian Studios, who also did the only other game I've played from them was Divinity Original Sin 2. And that was actually a pretty long game as well. I'll fully admit.
This is gonna be
Yeah.
quality then.
It's fucking quality. There's a reason that right now it has a higher Metacritic rating than Tears of the Kingdom.
I think I saw that actually. So is it out yet, or is it just?
Yes, it's out on PC as of August 5th.
Okay. So
And
because I've been seeing a
that's
lot of things
fucked to
like
me.
a lot of videos and articles about like perfecting your build and saves coming and like it's been highly talked
Yeah.
about, and I'm kind of like, is this out yet? Okay.
Yep.
So
It's blown Larian away. Like they had no idea it was going to be this popular
nice.
because it has exploded in popularity.
Well, and I remember because this was in our game awards, like not ours, not the bossies, but when we were discussing the game awards, this was like announced then, wasn't it? Well, okay.
Um,
It had been a known thing for a while, but its like big release was announced at the Game Awards.
it's official like 1.0 release. Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that because it's been on early access on Steam for the past few years.
Yeah.
But
But
it was only touched Act 1
I
apparently in early access, where
what
now it's like 3 acts, 4 acts.
I remember when they announced it and I was like, "Oh, this is actually like a pretty big deal." Like Baldur's Gate is
Yes.
like kind of the gold
It's
standard in
huge.
its, it's like the old gold box D&D games fully realize their potential. That's what the Baldur's Gate series seems to be.
Well, it goes off Dungeons and Dragons 5e rule set.
Advanced or something. I don't know. I don't know enough about
Yeah,
Dungeons and
I
Dragons.
neither do I, but
Yeah.
I'll play something that deals with the rules for me instead of me having to learn all the rules and gamify it for me.
That's the thing.
Gamify a game for me.
I have looked at the Dungeons and Dragons games from afar, like even the old school DOS ones, and I'm like, as much as I don't actually care for like playing Dungeons and Dragons myself, this seems up my alley. I like those old school, like make you think kind of RPGs.
Yeah, exactly. And so with Larian, the only game I've played was Divinity Original Sin, and that was fabulous. That
Mhm.
was absolutely a fantastic time. So knowing that it's these guys who actually got Wizards of the Coast to sign off on them doing the Baldur's Gate series, kind of I don't want to say reboot, but kind of reboot. It's the third one. The original ones were like before 2000, right?
I feel like it would
So
be much more triple A-ified now because like Wizards of the Coast is Hasbro, and Hasbro is big money.
yes.
Yeah. So I don't know if I'll try it myself, but it does look interesting. I'm excited to see what you think about it.
I'm excited to try it. I don't know if I'm gonna hop in right away because I think the PS5 version comes out early September,
Okay.
and I'll be grabbing a physical copy of it.
I guess
Um, but how many things do we have coming out within the next couple months, or
well,
the rest of this month and next month? We got Blasphemous 2.
yeah.
We got Liza P.
Yeah. Yeah.
Other stuff.
I was actually
that I
just gonna
can't think of
say,
right now.
we've gone on for a bit. How do you feel about like closing this on out with some things that we're looking forward to in the next little future?
Yeah,
Yeah.
if we're looking to close things out, if you're running out of rambly things,
Yeah. Well, that we want to avoid from doing hard topics, right? But
yeah,
I still so in the near future, a couple things that I'm looking, as you mentioned, Blasphemous 2. Oh boy, that is, and Lies of P. That is something I'm also
fuck.
highly anticipating. What
Am I ever looking forward to both
what
those?
are your thoughts on Armored Core 6 though?
So Armored Core, I'm not too sure to be honest. So I will fully admit, along with other things that people seem to love, such as anime, I don't care for mechs, which anyone who knows me personally probably finds that really weird because I tend to be very creative. I like building things and taking things apart and building little robots to do my bidding. I don't like things with mechs.
Honestly, I just think mechs are super cool, and like I was never into Gundam or anything. All the like
Yeah,
big mech franchises, none of that ever did for me. But like video games with mechs, you got mechs in it, you're speaking my language. There's a Capcom fighting game on the fighting collection that I was like mostly excited for because it's just a fighting game with mechs. They're just neat. They're big. They're chunky. Mech Warrior franchise I remember playing way back on the PC and falling in love with would probably be where my fondness for this kind of stuff starts. Now, as for Armored Core, it looks really good.
it does look really good.
It,
I'll give it
it
that.
looks
And
really snappy, and it doesn't look Souls-ish. And people were like, "Oh, it's going to be Robot Souls." Like, no, it's probably just going to be a challenging game. But it actually
it's
looked.
probably going to be Armored Core.
You know what it really made me think of when I was watching some of the most recent gameplay for it was kind of made me think of Nier Automata.
I could see that.
Yeah, it was that very kind of like bullet hell action combat kind of thing. It still had very deliberate looking contact like combat. You can tell these are the minds that make very punishing games, but it seemed like an incredibly different flavor about it. It was also really cool, like the scope of how much you can explore. It seems like there's like 12 different missions you can do. I don't know. I'm very intrigued. I don't know if I'll pick that one up on launch, but I'm gonna keep an eye on it.
Yeah, I think what's going to sell me on the okay, so I'm a Souls fan,
Yep.
which kind of in turn makes me a FromSoft fan. I've checked out some of their previous games and where I haven't beat them, and when I say previous games, I mean like Kingsfield. There's another one that they did, but I don't remember the name of.
They've got a
Was
few
an
under
Armored
their
Core.
belt.
Yes. But they're mostly known for the Souls games now, right?
Yep.
Like that's where their popularity comes from. So first off, to see a new Armored Core game coming, that's friggin' neat. That's cool. I like the fact that they haven't like given up on their old franchises. It
It
seemed like it
actually
for a long
feels
time, but
like it feels like to me with the success of things like Elden Ring, and I believe Sekiro was also quite successful.
it
Um,
got Game of the Year when it came out.
oh well, that's pretty damn successful then. That's what,
Yeah,
two of their most recent releases just getting Game of the Year.
their two last games got Game of the Year.
Oh, yeah, they're sitting pretty then. So
Yeah.
I feel like they actually have the confidence to actually revive one of their more older niche titles, and people are gonna be like, "Oh, FromSoft's making it." They're almost like, I don't want people to take this as a comparison to quality, especially these days, but it's kind of like Rockstar putting out a game, right? Like Rockstar putting out a new game, no matter what it is usually a pretty big deal.
Well, look at when L.A. Noir came out. That was
Uh,
Rockstar, wasn't it?
that was Rockstar, yes.
But at that point, they already had a couple GTA games, and they're like, "Oh, we got to check this out."
Yep.
New IP, new experiences, right?
Yeah, Red Dead as well. Although I believe the first in Red Dead isn't Rockstar. I could be wrong.
I think it is. I'm
It,
pretty sure it is.
I know it's a very different game because it's level based instead of open world. And yeah, Red Dead Revolver is a very, very different game from Red Dead Redemption.
Yeah,
Yeah, much more cartoony too.
and that's coming out for Switch now too.
Ooh,
Although it's
ooh.
like a straight port.
Don't care. I'm excited all the same. And for as much knocking as I have done of Red Dead 2, I have a lot of fondness for Red Dead 1. And I have
Yep,
tried to go back to it on my Xbox 360. I don't know. I used to think the Xbox 360 controller was great, but maybe it's
can't
just a
stand it now.
maybe, it might just be the weird control scheme of Red Dead because it feels very. I don't know if chunky was the word, but he's just so drunk. Um, so like it had that really weird kind of control scheme that the early Grand Theft Auto, well, maybe not the early, but like the GTA 4 kind of control scheme where like you're running, but you're looking forward, but your legs are turning left,
Yep,
and then you could just trip.
it's almost like
There was momentum to your running, and it was
it's
weird.
momentum, and it's kind of like a half baked between normal locomotion and tank controls.
Yeah, that's actually a really good way to put it. But
Yeah,
I have a lot of nostalgia for the first Red Dead. I think, I don't know, the Western flavor, I kind of got a soft spot for it. But also, Undead Nightmare was really fun. And if I'm not mistaken, this re release is going to have that and whatever
I
other
think they said so.
DLC.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the one thing that's a bit of a bummer is, from what I've been seeing anyway, and it's weird because this game went from like leak to announcement in like in the matter of a week. Like no one was thinking about it. There's like, oh, a Red Dead announcement
Oh, like
coming out.
24 hours.
Yeah, and it was like, it's one of those things that kind of sounded like bullshit, and then it just happened. I was like, oh, okay. Like it wasn't even enough time to like build hype and surprise. It was just, oh, here it is.
Yep.
But
And that comes out sometime, I think October.
so I think it actually comes out in like a week or two, but that's only digitally.
Oh shit.
And
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
there's like a physical release plan for something like October. And a lot of people are really scared because of the Grand Theft Auto trilogy that came out that was just
And that's understandable.
just
I mean,
abysmal.
because so the price in Canada is $65.
You know what? That's actually kind of a budget title in my mind. Not super budget, but it was like 40 and but like 65. Honestly, not the worst thing to spend.
Uh, I mean, if you think brand new games are 70,
80.
80, yeah.
Tears of the Kingdom was 90.
Yes, that's right.
I'm so
So yeah,
glad that hasn't
still
been
in
hanging.
the budget, but
It's not full price. I wouldn't say budget entirely, but I wouldn't say full price.
yeah,
It's
it's not
about
like the $40 budget games. It's
yeah,
yeah.
this is a different spin for this conversation to take, but it's very interesting how prices are gauged. Like, what do you remember what Live a Live went for? It was like 45, $50.
It was $54, I think.
Yeah, Crisis Core I think goes for retail like 60.
64.
Um, Near was like 40. Uh, man,
Yeah, something like that on
game
release.
pricing is. I know I just mentioned nothing but Square titles, but game pricing is just all over the place these days.
It is. It really is. I mean, well, look at Red Dead. It's 64. And now these are all Canadian prices again.
Yeah, I want to say
Any
that would be
listeners in
50
other places?
in the U.S., something like
Yeah.
that.
50 in the US. As for other places, I got no idea. Thanks for listening.
It's whatever it is with the Canadian conversion rate. All those people I listed off from our other country listeners, tell us in the comments below. I don't know where that
I'm
below
actually kind of
resides.
curious.
Yeah. What's Red Dead cost in your
Yeah.
country, people? Please tell us.
Yes.
But I've
On
heard
X.
X. Going back to that whole tangent, though, apparently it's not going to have the online feature, and if that's the case, that kind of bumps me out because the Red Dead Online is actually one of the only online kind of components to a game that I've ever really got into. It is so
Okay, so-
random because it was never really like popular or all that. It might have been back in the day, but when I first started playing it, the servers were not ghost towns, but not so super populated.
Fully populated.
Yeah,
What was the Red Dead Online like?
it was
Like, what was it?
it was just the Red Dead map, and you would still have like. So, have you played the original Red Dead?
No.
Okay, so you could do things like there was
I've
scavenging.
not gone for that pony ride.
Yeah, the first Red Dead is not as much of a pony ride as Red Dead 2. You get a lot more control over it. That's where I think Red Dead 2 was really honed in on its plot, so it was kind of railroading you, right? Railroads, Old West.
Ah.
Yeah, but you have your monotony quests like almost any kind of MMO would be. Like collect so many of this particular flora, or hunt down X amount of this. It had those kind of grindy elements to it, and then you would have your PvP arenas, or you would have PvE quests that you could do in multiplayer. It was nothing too groundbreaking, but I don't know, something about it was just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was probably just
I could certainly see that.
It's probably just being cowboys in this janky Rockstar world. I don't know. And something about like the actual Red Dead Online. I don't know. It at that point it felt like GTA 5's online, which I tried for a little bit. People were like, "Oh my god, it's so great." I'm like, "I'm not having fun."
Not quite the same.
No, but time
So
makes fools of us all.
Well, do we want to start wrapping this up?
Well, hold on. I there was one more thing I wanted to ask you about that's coming out later this year, because it's something
Okay.
I've been recommending to you for a good little while. And
Well, that's what it would mean. We could start listing off what we're looking forward to coming out.
that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
But the Metal Gear Solid collection. Oh,
It is. Yeah.
I'm getting it. I know I'm getting it for a fact.
I just don't like how most of it's download.
Well, what?
Yeah.
I didn't know
there's
this.
yeah, it's mostly all download.
Oh.
Only a little bits on the cartridge.
Ooh. Asian copy might not be.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah. A lot of
Yeah,
times.
that's a good call.
A lot of times they don't do that. Because I know it is a volume 1 and there's a volume 2 planned, but I didn't know. Now, that said, there is a lot crammed into this collection. I think it's like the first 3.
Yep.
Yeah,
1, 2, and 3.
It was the first 3 games. And I just remembered Metal Gear Solid 3's getting a full-blown remake.
Yes, it is.
Oh, that's cool. So I've never played 3. I've wanted to because I've heard 3 is like really, really good. It was good enough to get a port on the 3DS of all fucking things. Like,
Yep.
so weird. But I've never got around to it. I've only really played the first one, but it is, and I don't have a big list of like top PlayStation 1 games, but that is one of them. It is a very unique experience, and it is a wacky game, but it's not the level of Kojima wacky that the series would become. It feels like a solid, espionage drama.
Yeah, it's still good, right?
You know what? I would say this is a weird assessment of Metal Gear Solid, and yet I feel like this will make perfect sense. It's like military Kingdom Hearts. That's the level of like wackiness with the storytelling, but it's just a different tone. We don't have Disney characters and all that stuff, but we do have just as many what the fuck moments in it.
Psycho Mantis.
Yeah, but I do think that the very first the first Metal Gear Solid on PlayStation is like a genuine you owe it to yourself to play if you are a fan of video games tier kind of game. Or at least for those who have any inclination or interest in retro games. First Metal Gear Solid, awesome. What I'm more excited for, though, is the original MSX Metal Gear games are going to be on this collection. And I think they were in like one of the collections that came out for like PS3 or something, I don't know. But it wasn't the actual Metal Gear Solid or Metal Gear that we got on NES. We got the first Metal Gear, which is like a watered down version of the MSX Metal Gear, and then Metal Gear 2 Snake's Revenge is a completely original, has nothing to do with the original Metal Gear 2 game.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like the Zelda 2 of Metal Gear, as where on the MSX it was like an improved Metal Gear 1, it had better espionage and mechanics and all that stuff, as where Metal Gear 2 Snake's Revenge on the NES is just we added a whole bunch of different elements. We added, new plot points. It's a completely different game. It has side-scrolling sections now. Like, it's just wild.
Yeah, it's a clusterfuck of things, right?
So, and I don't know if it's on the collection, but even if it's not, it might finally inspire me to go and play my Game Boy Color copy of Metal Gear Solid. Or, I can't remember what it's actually called in England, something Babel. I don't know. It's just Metal Gear Solid here, but it's not like a demake of Metal Gear Solid 1. It's its own original game, and kind of neat because it plays like the NES one.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like Zelda.
That's neat.
It's Zelda. If Zelda was military Kingdom Hearts. Yeah. So
take that for what you will.
I have a decent amount of anticipation for that one.
Yeah, no, that's pretty neat. I probably should pick it up. I've been saying for years that I should check out the Metal Gear series.
It's
because I haven't played a single one, and I feel like that's something I should correct.
It's kind of like a dip a toe in at least. I wouldn't say immerse yourself into the entire franchise, but you never know. It might be something you end up really liking.
This is true.
Yeah.
I beat a few Splinter Cell games. I feel like those are worse than Metal Gear will ever be.
That was a franchise that was really big and then vanished one day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, Wii.
That's a Tom Clancy franchise, wasn't it?
Yep, Ubisoft.
Yes.
So anticipated games. You listed off a few, like the Red Dead port, Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah.
What else?
Oh, I think you already forgot about this one.
I don't know.
It's coming back in a big way.
Oh, there's a few of them that could be.
But what do you think I am insinuating here?
I was gonna say Sea of Stars.
No, that's not coming back. That's coming out finally.
I guess it's not coming back.
And I am excited. No. I was implying the remake of that Super Mario RPG.
Ah, yes.
Oh, that's what?
That is definitely
September?
November.
Oh, okay. So it's a little closer. That's fine. You know what? Because September's got Blasphemous 2. Holy fuck. Well, physically, digitally, it came out or is coming out in like a week or so. Which it scares me because I don't think it'll be too bad for spoilers, but I'm worried about spoilers. But all the same, and then September also has Lies of P, which is awesome because I've been highly anticipating that game ever since playing the demo, but also means I'm probably not playing Elden Ring anytime soon. And Super Mario RPG, is very exciting. And so I'm very selective about my time with my RPGs. I was actually thinking about finally getting around to Amori.
Oh, yes.
Yes, I know. The year
But I feel like there's a but.
we're already in the 8th month of the year, and this is a challenge that was issued to me at the start of the year. I need to
This is
start
true.
thinking about taking the time to sit down and play this game.
I'm in the same zone though. Like I booted up Final Fantasy 3, but
That's not playing it. That's a little different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do want to take some time and actually finally sit down with Amori. Actually, on a random tangent about that, so not long ago, it was for the Amazon Prime Day sales. So I picked up Demon Souls, and then alongside it, I picked up something that was like I'm happy to have this in my collection. I don't know when I will get to it, but I am looking forward to it. I picked up Octopath Traveler 2.
Ah, yes.
But something about it just doesn't feel right without finishing Octopath 1. And in order to finish Octopath 1, I'm going to have to entirely restart Octopath 1. So I have actually been thinking about playing that, but then I say to myself, but you have to play Amori.
So the nice thing with Mori is you could almost... You don't have to put a lot of thought into its RPG mechanics.
Well, actually, sidestepping Amori for a moment, going back to Super Mario RPG, it does not concern me as an RPG within my RPG schedule. It feels different enough to not be like, oh, here's a turn-based RPG I got to dedicate my time to.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't think you'll have the RPG fatigue with Amori.
No, I'm really looking forward to it, actually. I know absolutely nothing about it other than it's an interesting experience that I'm getting myself into.
That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
And just caution, it has triggers. Things that'll trigger people.
I'm excited. Bring on the triggers.
Yeah.
But aside from Super Mario RPG, at least off the top of my head in this rambly episode, that's pretty much all I can think of immediate anticipation.
So, aside from Super Mario RPG, the remake, which I want to know what that percentage bar is that they show in the trailer.
I want to know if there's new
something
content.
New. Well, that whole percentage thing is new.
Yes.
So I'm wondering what they did to it. But this is just stuff I have on pre-order right now. Coming out next month is Blasphemous 2.
Yeah.
Liza P.
Yeah.
Vernal Edge, which is a Metroidvania side scroller. Looks really good. And Hammerwatch 2.
Random.
Yes.
Random. So like
it's
that's
a big
like
month.
Heroes of Hammerwatch? Or was that a spin-off?
That I think it was a spin-off that they did. Because you got Hammerwatch 1.
Yeah.
Then they came out with Heroes of Hammerwatch, and now there's Hammerwatch 2.
Interesting. Yeah.
And then Sea of Stars is coming when?
Oh, geez. I want to say it's September. I don't know. But see, I'm just waiting for my physical copy. So I have done so much to not think about that game since backing it on Kickstarter that I just want it to arrive and then be like, oh, here's my Chrono Trigger reference.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I'm very excited for Sea of Stars. I'm excited for the fruits of my my Kickstarter backing too. Like, I mean, it's the first one I've ever done. So,
yeah.
And for anyone who does eventually check out Sea of Stars, if you find yourself in the Kickstarter crypt, which I'm sure will have thousands of graves, keep an eye out for the Taggart show because I'm in the game and that excites me.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Screenshots ahoy.
I'm not on the game because I thought I did the Kickstarter, but I didn't.
Yeah.
So I did the backer kit.
Yeah. It's all the same as long as you end up with what looks like a very exciting game. I didn't bother with the demo. Like I said, it's buried out of my mind until it shows up in my hands.
I know I'm getting it already. I don't need to test it.
No.
Simple as that.
And the fact that it's not only made by the same people, but is a pseudo sequel or prequel, we don't know yet, to The Messenger, which is another game that I'm not going to say it's top 5 because I do have some complaints about it, but I would say it's up there for the games that I own on my Switch for sure. Like, yes. Messenger's pretty great.
Oh, Sea of Stars is coming out soon. That means I can go back and replay Messenger finally.
Ooh, it's got a solid soundtrack. You should use a Messenger song in this episode. Oh, that's going to be
All right,
weird for
Paul.
you figuring out the music for this, isn't it?
No, I already knew I was going to use Return to Castlevania music.
Oh, Dead Cells and Messenger? That's a good mashup. I like that.
That's a good mashup.
I like that.
Well, that takes care of that.
That takes care of that. Perfect. But
Well, is that enough rambly for you?
I think I'm pretty sweaty. The box is hot. Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah. No, that was nice though. It was nice. It was like
Right.
venting's not the right word because it wasn't frustration. But
Therapeutic.
it was just nice to just talk about games. And for those of you who took the time to comment on this episode and give us something again, thank you very much. We would love to hear more from you fine folk. And
Hopefully
yeah.
this episode didn't suck.
Yeah, I would say give us your feedback and see if you want to hear more of this, but I don't care. I'm going to do it again.
You do care, but you're still gonna do it.
I do care, but yes, it's nice to just have a hey, how's it going episode. So, but that's it.
If it's not good, we'll just try harder.
Yeah, that's it for me
the
though.
next
So
one.
yeah, feel free to close us on out.
All
here.
right. That's it from me. That's it from Tyler, or so he says. You can catch us over on the socials over at Instagram and Twitter. I'm not calling it X, I'm sorry. At OptionalBossPC, or you can email us any comments or thoughts at optionalbosspodcast@gmail.com. I've been Josh, the other guy's been Tyler, and thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Take care.